Hey guys, what's up? Let's see who's here. Hey Dragon Mama, Army Wife. Hey Nancy. Hey Mare. Hey Jan. Yeah, okay, so it's not just me. So there is new math. It's different, right? I don't know what they're doing. Hey SD. Hey Cool Gamer. Have you guys ever had Tim Tams? They're cookies. Um, my son heard about them, and then I heard about them through Crystal Bill, and I'm like, what are these things? So we finally found some here where I live. We bought them. Oh my, wow. Talk about a good cookie. Oh, they're good. Hey, Kit Kat. Hey, Melly. All right, I'll get this reading going. Hey, Jesse. Hey, Deb. Actually, you know what? I'm going to grab some ice for my drink. There, much better. Hey, Patricia. The cookies are called Tim Tams. Tim, and then the second word is Tams, Tams. I've never heard of them before, and then when I did, I'm like, what is? Yeah, it's a British cookie apparently. We found them at, well, you guys don't have a giant tiger, we do, and that's where I found them. And we tried them. There's only two they sell at the grocery store. There's one that's just plain chocolate, like they're chocolate covered cookies, and the other one was chocolate covered with caramel inside. Oh wow, they are so good. I believe it's a British cookie, Melly. I don't know where does I. That's what I thought, anyways. I'm pretty sure. Um, they're by a brand called Arnott's. Arnotts. Tim Tam Chewy Caramel, the most irresistible chocolate biscuit. And plus, I call them biscuits. So I'm just thinking, yeah, they gotta be. I don't know. I just thought they were, or maybe they're Australian. Um, I don't know. They're good as hell though. New Zealand. What? Oh, okay. It says that in New Zealand. All right, Britt. They're Australian. So they are Australian. Thank you, Patricia. Okay. Because, well, Crystal Bill, she's from Australia, right? So I don't know why I forgot that. And why I thought they're. Me and Leland couldn't figure out if it was British or what. And that's why I thought so too, because, yeah, what we call in the US, in the US, even in Canada, we call them cookies, and Brits call it biscuits. Yeah, that's why I assumed. But their talk is a lot the same. They're international food file. Sweet. They're good. I'm glad Leland told me about them. You ordered them online? I looked for them on Amazon, and then it came up that you can get basically a basket full of art, like food from like from another place in the world, like Australia. And there was this one thing in it, and there was they had different sorts of licorice. There was the Tim Tams, and then burger rings. I'm like, what the hell is burger rings? I've never heard of it. It looked like a small bag of chips, and they were shaped like circles, and they're called burger rings. New Zealand, Australia, you think they're the same? I don't know, but every time I think about a biscuit, I think about an old dry brittle. Yeah, like something you dip in your tea to make it. I don't know, at least taste halfway decent. All right, I'm gonna get into this. We're almost done, guys. Yeah, tea, like actual tea biscuits. They're those flat ones that are square usually. They're good in tea, actually. Yeah, I agree. World Market carries stuff like that. Uh, New Zealand and Australians use biscuit for cookies. Yeah, it's a little different, and they call fries chips, but yet we say fish and chips just for that one part though. But we always call them fries. We call chips chips. It's funny. You don't understand it. I'm talking about like a biscuit and gravy biscuit. Oh, hey Tia. Oh, okay. Speaking of gravy and biscuit, I've always wanted to try Yorkshire pudding. I don't know. Sounds like it would be good, and that would be thanks to Gordon Ramsay. All right, I'm gonna start reading. Crisps are potato chips. Fish and puppies? I never heard that one, though. All right, July 24th to the 26th, 1970. Tate murder trial starts today. Oh, there's Brittany.
Hello.
Hey, Yorkshire pudding is good.
Sorry, I had to visit the phone booth.
I did too. I was surprised when I wasn't late. Tate murder trial starts today. Hint prosecution will reveal surprise motive. Sharon's father expected to be the first witness. This was July 24th to the 26th, 1970. Many of the spectators had been waiting since 6 a.m., hoping to get a seat and a glimpse of Manson. When he was escorted into the courtroom, several gasped. On his forehead was a bloody X. Sometime the previous night, he had taken a sharp object and carved the mark in his flesh. An explanation was not long forthcoming. Outside courts, his followers passed out a typewritten statement bearing his name. I have X'd myself from your world. You have created the monster. I am not of you, from you, nor do condone your unjust attitude towards things, animals, and people that you do not try to understand. I stand opposed to what you do and have done in the past. You make fun of God and have murdered the world in the name of Jesus Christ. My faith in me is stronger than all of your armies, governments, gas chambers, or anything you may want to do to me. I know what I have done. Your courtroom is man game. Love is my judge. He is a whack job.
Like,
Like, he doesn't make sense. I feel like he's trying to come off really smart and strong in his beliefs, but they just come off creepy.
yeah, eventually it didn't really work.
Uh-huh.
He pretty much got sentenced to prison for pretty much the rest of his life.
Yeah. Court says People versus Charles Manson, Susan Atkins, Richard Krenwinkel, and Lisa Van Houten. All parties and counsel and jurors are present. Do the people care to make an opening statement? Bugliosi says, yes, Your Honor. I began the people's opening statement, which is a preview of the evidence of the prosecution intended to introduce in the trial, by summarizing the charges, naming the defendants, and after relating what had occurred at 10050 Cielo Drive in the early morning hours of August 9th, 1969, and at 3301 Waverly Drive the following night, identifying the victims. A question you ladies and gentlemen will probably ask yourself at some point during the trial, and we expect the evidence to answer that question for you, is this. What kind of diabolical mind would contemplate or conceive? I can't get my mouse to work. Hold on. Okay, what kind of diabolical mind would contemplate or conceive of these 7 murders? What kind of mind would want to have 7 humans being brutally murdered? We expect the evidence at this trial to answer the question and show the defendant, Charles Manson, owned that diabolical mind. Charles Manson, who the evidence will show at times had the infinite humility, as it were, to refer to himself as Jesus Christ. Evidence at this trial will show defendant Manson to be a vagrant wanderer, a frustrated singer-guitarist, a pseudo-philosopher, but most of all, the evidence will conclusively prove that Charles Manson is a killer who cleverly masqueraded behind the common image of a hippie, that of being peace-loving. The evidence will show Charles Manson to be a megalomaniac, who coupled his insatiable thirst for power with an intense obsession for violent death. The evidence would show, I continued, that Manson was the unquestioned leader and overlord of a nomadic band of vagabonds who called themselves the Family. After briefly tracing history and the composition of the group, I observed, we anticipate that Mr. Manson, in his defense, will claim that neither he nor anyone else was the leader of the much less family, and that he never ordered anyone in the family to do anything, much less commit these murders for him. Canarek says, Your Honor, he is now making an opening statement for us. Canarek, I don't like him. Hey, ma'am. The court says, overruled, you may continue, Mr. Bugliosi. Bugliosi says, we therefore intend to offer evidence at this trial showing that Charles Manson was in fact the dictatorial leader of the family, that everyone in the family was savagely obedient to him, that he has always had the other members of the family to do his bidding for him, and that eventually they committed the 7 Tate LaBianca murders at his command. This evidence of Mr. Manson's total domination over the family will be offered as circumstantial evidence that on the 2 nights in question, it was he who ordered these 7 murders. Charles Manson. Yeah, apparently he was a hippie. Jesse, yeah. The principal witness for the prosecution, I told the jury, would be Linda Kasabian. I then briefly stated what Linda would testify to. Interrelating her story was the physical evidence we intended to introduce. Hi, Tina. The gun, the rope, the clothing, the killers were the night of the Tate murders, and so forth. We came now to the question that everyone has been asking since these murders occurred. Why? The prosecution does not have the burden of proving motive, I told the jury. We needn't introduce one single solitary speck of evidence as to motive. However, when we have evidence of motive, we introduce it because if one has a motive for committing murder, this is circumstantial evidence that it was he who committed the murder. In this trial, we will offer evidence of Charles Manson's motives for ordering these 7 murders. If Manson and the defense were wanting to hear the word robbery, they'd wait in vain. Instead, Manson's own beliefs came back at them. We believe there to be more than one motive, I told the jury. Besides the motives of Manson's passion for violent death and his extreme anti-establishment state of mind, the evidence in this trial will show that there was a further motive for these murders, which is perhaps as bizarre or perhaps even more bizarre than the murders themselves. Wow, the things you learn. Yeah, I'm learning a lot with this book too, Jesse, actually. If Manson and the defense were wanting to hear the word robbery, they'd wait and... Oh, I just read that. Sorry. Briefly, the evidence will show Manson's fanatical obsession with Helter Skelter, a term he got from the English music group The Beatles. Manson was an avid follower of the Beatles and believed that they were speaking to him across the ocean through the lyrics of their songs. In fact, Manson told his followers that he had found complete support for his philosophy in the words of those songs. To Charles Manson, Helter Skelter, the title of one of their songs, meant the black man rising up and destroying the entire white race. That is, with the exception of Charles Manson and his chosen followers, who intended to escape from Helter Skelter by going to the desert and living in a bottomless pit, a place that Manson derived from Revelation 9, a chapter in the last book of the New Testament. Evidence from several witnesses will show that Charles Manson hated black people, but that he also hated the white establishment, whom he called pigs. The word pig was found printed in blood on the outside of the front door of the Tate residence. The words death to pigs, Helter, Skelter, and rise were found printed in the blood inside the La Bianca residence. The evidence will show that one of Manson's principal motives for these 7 savage murders was to ignite Helter Skelter. In other words, start the black-white revolution by making it look as though the black man had murdered these 7 Caucasian victims. In his twisted mind, he thought this would cause the white community to turn against the black community, ultimately leading to a civil war between blacks and whites. A war which Manson told his followers would see bloodbaths in the streets of every American city. A war which Manson predicted and foresaw the black man as winning. Manson envisioned that black people, once they destroyed the entire white race, would be unable to handle the reins of power because of inexperience, and would therefore have to turn over the reins to those white people who had escaped from Helter Skelter, i.e. Charles Manson and his family. In Manson's mind, his family, and particularly he, would be the ultimate beneficiaries of a black-white civil war. We intended to offer the testimony of not just one witness, but many witnesses on Manson's philosophy because the evidence will show that it is so strange and so bizarre that if you heard it only from the lips of one person, you probably would not believe it. Thus far, all the emphasis had been on Manson. Convicting Manson was the first priority. If we convicted the others and not Manson, it would be like a war crimes trial in which the flunkies were found guilty and Hitler went free. Therefore, I stressed that it was Manson who had ordered these murders. Those co-defendants, obedient to every command, actually committed them. There was a danger in this, however. I was giving the attorneys for the 3 girls a ready-made defense. In the penalty phase of the trial, they could argue that since Atkins, Carmichael, and Van Houten were totally under Manson's domination, that they were not as culpable as he, and therefore should receive life imprisonment rather than the death penalty. Anticipating long in advance that I'd have to prove the very opposite, I laid the groundwork in my opening statement. What about Charles Manson's followers, the other defendants, in this case, Susan, Patricia, and Leslie? The evidence will show that they, along with Tex Watson, were the actual killers of the 7 Tate La Bianca victims. The evidence will also show that they were very willing participants in these mass murders, that by their overkill tactics, for instance, Rosemary La Bianca was stabbed 41 times, Wojciech Frykowski was stabbed 51 times, shot twice, and struck violently over the head 13 times with the butt of a revolver. These defendants displayed that even apart from Charles Manson, murder ran through their own blood. Yeah, absolutely, Jesse. Oh, yeah. After mentioning Susan Atkins' confessions to Virginia Graham and Ronnie Howard, the fingerprint which placed Patricia Carmichael at the Tate murder scene, and the evidence which implicated Leslie Van Houten in the La Bianca murders, I observed. Evidence will show that Charles Manson started his family in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco in March of 1967. The family's demise, as it were, took place in October of 1969 at Barker Ranch, a desolate, secluded, rock-strewn hideout from civilization on the shadowy perimeters of Death Valley. Between these 2 dates, 7 human beings, an 8.5-month-old baby boy fetus in the womb of Sharon Tate, met their death at the hands of these members of the family. The evidence at this trial will show that these 7 incredible murders were perhaps the most bizarre, savage, nightmarish murders in the recorded annals of crime. Mr. Stovitz and I intended to prove, not just beyond a reasonable doubt, which is our only burden, but beyond all doubt that these defendants committed these murders and are guilty of these murders, and in our final arguments, to you at the conclusion of the evidence, we intended to ask you to return verdicts of first-degree murder against each of these defendants. Noting that it would be a long trial, with many witnesses, I recalled the old Chinese proverb, the palest ink is better than the best memory, urging the jury to take detailed notes to aid them in their deliberations. I closed by telling the jury that we felt confident that they would give both the defendants and the people of the state of California the fair and impartial trial to which each was entitled. Kanarek had interrupted my opening statement 9 times with objections, all of which the court had overruled. This freaking guy.
Holy crap.
This lawyer cracks me up. He's just unbelievable. Wow. When I finished, he moved that the whole statement be stricken, or, failing in that, a mistrial declared. The judge denied both motions. Fitzgerald told the press my remarks were scurrilous and slanderous and called the Helter Skelter motive a truly preposterous theory. I had a strong feeling that by the time of his closing argument to the jury, Paul wouldn't even bother to argue this. The defense reversing its opening statements until after the prosecution has completed its case. The people called their first witness, Colonel Paul Tate. So this is Sharon's father. The defense reserving its opening statements until after the prosecution had. I just read that. Holy. With military erectness, Sharon's father took the stand and was sworn. Though 46, he looked younger and sported a well-trimmed beard. Before entering the courtroom, he had been thoroughly searched. It's been rumored that he had vowed to kill Manson. Even though he glanced only briefly at the defendants and exhibited no discernible reaction, the bailiffs watched him every minute he was in the courtroom. Our draft examination was brief. Colonel Tate described his last meeting with Sharon and identified photos of his daughter, Miss Folger, Frykowski, Sebring, and those at 10050 Cielo Drive. Wilfred Parent, who followed Colonel Tate to the stand, broke down and cried when shown a photograph of his son Stephen. Winifred Chapman, the Tate maid, was next. I questioned her in detail about the washing of the two doors. Then, wanting to establish a chronology for the jurors, I took her up to departure from the residence on the afternoon of August 8, 1969, intending to recall her to the stand later so she could testify for her discoveries for the next morning. On cross-examination, Fitzgerald brought out that she hadn't mentioned washing the door in Sharon's bedroom until months after the murders, and then she had told this not to LAPD but me. This was to be the start of a pattern. Having questioned each of the witnesses not once but a number of times, I had uncovered a great deal of information not previously related to the police. In many instances, I had only been the one who had interviewed the witness. Though Fitzgerald initially planted the idea, Kinnerak would nurture it until, in his mind at least, it budded into a full-bloom conspiracy, with Bugliosi framing the whole case. Thanks, Venus. Kinnerak had only one question for Mrs. Chapman, but it was a good one. Had she ever seen the defendant, Charles Manson, before her appearance in court? She replied that she had not. Although he had recently married and was not anxious to leave his bride, William Garrison had flown back from his home in Lancaster, Ohio, where he had returned after being released by LAPD. The former caretaker came across as sincere, though rather shy. Although I intended to call both officers, Weisenhunt and Wolfer, the former to testify to finding the setting on Garrison's stereo at between 4 and 5, the later to describe that sound test he had conducted. I did question Garrison in details as to the events of that night, and I felt the jury believed him when he claimed he hadn't heard any gunshots or screams. Oh, you're having a thunderstorm? Sounded like it. Oh, wow. They can get pretty wild. I asked
Yeah, I know.
Garrison. Very loud, eh? I asked Garrison, how loud were you playing your stereo? He said it was about medium. It wasn't very loud. This, I felt, was the best evidence Garrison was telling the truth. Had he been lying about hearing nothing, then surely he would have lied and said the stereo was loud. Most of Fitzgerald's questions concerned Garrison's arrest and alleged roughly handling by the police. At one point later in the trial, Fitzgerald would maintain that Garrison was involved in at least some of the Tate homicides. Since there wasn't even a hint of this in the cross-examination, I'd conclude that he was belatedly looking for a convenient scapegoat. Kinnerak again asked the same question. No, he'd never seen Manson before, Garrison replied. When I interviewed Garrison prior to his taking the stand, he told me that he still had nightmares about what happened. That weekend before his return to Ohio, Rudy Altabelli, who was now living in the main house, arranged for Garrison to revisit 10050 Cielo Drive. He found the premises quiet and peaceful. After that, he told me the nightmares stopped. At the end of the day, we had finished with 3 more witnesses. Frank Guerrero, who had been painting the nursery that Friday, Tom Vargas, the gardener, who testified to the arrivals and departures of the various guests that day and to his signing for the 2 steamer trunks, and Dennis Hurst, who identified Sebring from a photograph as the man who came to the front door when he delivered the bicycle about 8 that night. Hey, Two Skulls. The stage was now set for the prosecution's main witness, whom I intended to call to the stand that first thing Monday morning. On hearing my opening statement, Manson must have realized that I had his number. At the conclusion of court that afternoon, Sheriff's Deputy Sergeant William Maupin was escorting Manson from the lockup to the ninth floor of the jail when, to quote from Maupin's report, inmate Manson stated to undersigned that it would be worth $100,000 to be set free. Inmate Manson also commented on how much he would like to return to the desert and the life he had before his arrest. Inmate Manson commented additionally that money meant nothing to him, that several people had contacted him regarding large sums of money. Inmate Manson also stated that an officer would only receive a 6-month sentence if caught releasing an inmate without authority. Maupin reported that bribe offered to his superior, Captain Alley, who in turn informed Judge Older. Though the incident was never made public, Older gave the attorneys Maupin's report the next day. Reading it, I wondered what Manson would try next. Over the weekend, Susan Atkins, Patricia Carmichael, and Leslie Van Houten lit matches, heated bobby pins red hot, then burned X marks on their foreheads, after which they ripped open the burnt flesh with needles to create more prominent scars. When the jurors were brought into court Monday morning, the X's were the first thing they saw, graphic evidence that when Manson led, the girls followed. Hey, Brother Unlimited. A day or so later, Sandy, Squeaky, Gypsy, and most of the other family members did the same thing, as new disciples joined the group. This became one of the family rituals, complete to tasting the blood as it ran down their faces. Wow. July 27th to August 3rd, 1970. 8 sheriff's deputies escorted Linda Kasabian from Symbol Brand to the Hall of Justice, through an entrance that circumvented those patrolled by the family. When they reached the ninth floor, however, Sandra Good suddenly appeared in the corridor and screamed, "You kill us all, you'll kill us all." Linda, according to those who witnessed the encounter, seemed less shaken than sad. I saw Linda just after she arrived. Though her attorney, Gary Fleshman, had purchased a new dress for her, it had been misplaced, and she was wearing the same maternity dress she'd worn when pregnant. The baggy tent made her look more hippie-like than the defendants. After I'd explained the problem to Judge Older, he heard other matters in chambers until the dress was located and brought over. Later, a similar courtesy would be extended to the defense when Susan Atkins lost her bra. Bugliosi, the people calls Linda Kasabian. The sad, resigned look she gave Manson and the girls contrasted sharply with their obviously hostile glares. Clerk says, "Would you raise your right hand, please?" Canarac, object, Your Honor, on the grounds this witness is not competent and she is insane. What the hell? Bugliosi says, "Wait a minute, Your Honor. I moved to strike that, and I asked the court to find him in contempt for gross misconduct. This is unbelievable on his part." How the hell was that guy a lawyer? I do not understand. Oh.
Sounds like he got his certification from a Cracker Jack box.
Exactly. Like, this guy's unbelievable. Unfortunately, it was all too believable. Exactly the sort of thing we had feared since Canarac came on the case. Ordering the jury to disregard Canarac's remarks, Older called counsel to the bench. There's no question about it. Older told Canarac, "Your conduct is outrageous." Bugliosi says, "I know the court cannot prevent him from speaking up, but God knows what is he going to say in the future. If I were to say something like this in open court, I would probably be thrown off the case by my office and disbarred." Defending Canarac, Fitzgerald told the court that the defense intended to call witnesses who would testify that Lindsay Kasabian had taken LSD at least 300 times. The defense would contend, he said, that such drug use had rendered her mentality incapable of testifying. Whatever their offer of proof, Older said, matters of law were to be discussed either at the bench or in chambers, not in front of the jury. As for Canarac's outburst, Older warned him that if he did that once more, I am going to take some action against you. Linda was sworn. I asked her, "Linda, you realize that you are presently charged with 7 counts of murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder?" "Yes." Canarac objected, moving for a mistrial. Denied. It was some 10 minutes later before I was able to get in the second question. Oh my god. Oh, question. Linda, are you aware of the agreement between the district attorney's office and your attorneys that if you testify to everything you know about the Tate LaBianca murders, the district attorney's office will petition the court to grant you immunity from prosecution and dismiss all charges against you? Yes, I'm aware. Canarac objected on 4 different grounds. They were denied. By bringing this in first, we diffused one of the defense's biggest cannons. Besides the benefits which will accrue to you under the agreement, is there any other reason why you have decided to tell everything you know about these 7 murders? Another torrent of objections from Canarac before Linda was able to answer. I strongly believe the truth, and I feel the truth should be spoken. Holy God, this guy. Canarac even objected to my asking Linda the number of children she had.
Oh, gee.
I just can't with this guy. Wow. Often he used the shotgun approach, leading and suggestive. No, no foundation, conclusion, hearsay, and hope that at least some of the buckshot would hit. Many of his grounds were totally inapplicable. He would object to a conclusion, for example, when no conclusion was called for, or yell hearsay when I was simply asking her what she did next. This is such a horrible story. Like, true enough as it is, like, it's horrible what happened. So I apologize for my laughing. It's making you uncomfortable. I just can't. This guy, this lawyer, how the fuck does he have a job? I do not get it. Like, he's just, yeah, got his license from a Cracker Jack box. Oh, I don't usually get a lot of people on here, Two Skulls. Well, thank you for subscribing. I'm glad you love this channel. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to the madhouse. Since I anticipated this, it didn't bother me. However, it took over an hour to get Linda up to her first meeting with Manson, her description of life at Spawn Ranch, and over Canarac's very heated objections. Her definition of what she meant by the term family. Answer. Well, we lived together as one family, as a family lives together, as a mother and father and children, but we were all just one, and Charlie was the head. I was questioning Linda about the various orders Manson had given the girls when, unexpectedly, Judge Older began sustaining Canarac's hearsay objections. I asked to approach the bench. Lay people believe hearsay is inadmissible. Actually, there are so many exceptions to hearsay rule that many lawyers feel the law should read hearsay is admissible except in these few instances. For example, Susan Atkins' confessions to Virginia Graham and Ronnie Howard were hearsay, but admissible under the admission exception to the hearsay rule. I told Older I had anticipated many legal problems in this case, and I have done research on them, because I kind of play the devil's advocate, but I've never anticipated I'd have any trouble showing Manson's directions to members of the family. The autistic show. It's FBI Steve's fault. That's perfect. Older said he sustained the objections because he couldn't think of any exception to the hearsay rule that would permit its introduction of such statements. This was crucial. If Older ruled such conversations inadmissible, there went the domination framework in our case against Manson. Shortly after this, court recessed for the day. Aaron J. Miller-Levy and I were up late that night looking for citations of authority. Fortunately, we found 2 cases, People versus Fratino and People versus Stevens, in which the court ruled that you can show the existence of conspiracy by showing the relationship between the parties, including statements made to each other. Shown the cases the next morning, Judge Older reversed himself and overruled Canarac's objections. Opposition now came from a totally unexpected direction. Aaron. Linda had already testified that Manson ordered the girls to make love to male visitors to induce them to join the family. When I asked her, Linda, do you know what a sexual orgy is? Canarac immediately objected, as did Hughes, who remarked in a somewhat revealing choice of words, we are not trying the sex lives of these people, we are trying the murdered lives of these people. Not only were the defense attorneys shouting objections, many of which Older sustained, Aaron leaned over to me and said, can't we skip this stuff? We're just wasting time. Let's get into the 2 nights of murder. Look, Aaron, I told him I don't know how to say that, sotto voce? I don't know. I told him I'm fighting the judge. I'm fighting Canarac. I'm not going to fight you. I've got enough problems. This is important, and I'm going to get in. As Linda finally testified, in between Canarac's objections, Manson decided when an orgy would take place, Manson decided who would and who would not participate, and Manson then assigned the roles each would play. From start to finish, he was the maestro, and orchestrated the whole thing. As it were, orchestrating the whole thing. Then Manson controlled even the most intimate and personal aspect of the lives of his followers, was extremely powerful evidence of his domination. Moreover, along with 20-some persons involved in the particular orgy, Linda testified two were Charles Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Leslie Van Houten, and Patricia Carmichael. The sexual acts were not detailed, nor did I question Linda about other such group encounters. Once the point was made, I moved on to other testimony. Helter Skelter. The Black-White War Manson's belief in the Beatles were communicating with him through the lyrics of their songs. His announcement, late on the afternoon of August 8, 1969, that now is the time for Helter Skelter. Describing her appearance on the stand, the Los Angeles Times noted that even in discussing the group's sex life, Linda Kasabian was surprisingly serene, soft-spoken, and demure. Her testimony also at times was very moving, telling how Manson had separated the mothers and their children, and revealing her own feelings on being parted from Tanya. Linda said, "Sometimes, when there wasn't anybody around, especially Charlie, I would give my love and feed her." Linda was describing Manson's directions to the group just before they left Spawn Ranch the first night when Charlie, seated at the council table, put his head up to his neck and, with one finger extended, made a slitting motion across his throat. Although I was looking the other way and didn't see the gesture, others, including Linda, did. Yet there was no pause in her reply. She went on to relate how Tex had stopped the car in front of the big gate, the cutting of the telephone wires, driving back down the hill and parking, then walking back up. As she described how they had climbed the fence to the right of the gate, you could feel tension building in the courtroom. Then the sudden headlights. Answer. And a car pulled up in front of us and Tex leaped forward with a gun in his hand. And the man said, "Please don't hurt me. I won't say anything." And Tex shot him 4 times. As she described the murder of Stephen Parent, Linda began sobbing, as she had each time she had related the story to me. I could tell the jury was moved, both by the mounting horror and her reaction. Sadie giggled. Leslie sketched, and Katie looked bored. By the end of the day, I had brought Linda to the point where Katie was chasing the woman in the white gown, which was Folger, with a knife, and Tex was stabbing the big man, Krakowski. He just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. Question. When the man was screaming, do you know what he was screaming? Answer. There were no words. It was beyond words. It was just screams. Reporters keeping track of Canarek's objections gave up on the 3rd day. When the count passed to 200, Older warned Canarek that if he interrupted either the witness or the prosecution again, he would find him in contempt. Often a dozen transcript pages separated my question and Linda's answer. Bugliosi. We're going to have to go back, Linda. There's been a bizarre blizzard of objections. Canarek says, I object to that statement. Holy. When Canarek again interrupted Linda in mid-sentence, Older called us to the bench. The court says, Mr. Canarek, you have directly violated my order not to repeatedly interrupt. If I find you in contempt of court and I sentence you to 1 night in county jail, starting immediately after this court adjourns until this afternoon, until 7 a.m. next tomorrow morning. There we go. Canarek protested that rather than my interrupting the witness interrupted me. What? By day's end, Canarek would have company. Among the items I wished to submit for identification purposes was a photograph which showed the straight Satan's sword in a scabbard next to the steering wheel of Manson's own doom buggy. Since the photograph had been introduced in evidence in the Beausoleil trial, I didn't get it until it was brought over from the other court. The district attorney is withholding great quantities of evidence from us, Hughes charged. Bugliosi, for the record, I just saw it for the first time a few minutes ago myself. Hughes says, that is a lot of shit, Mr. Bugliosi. The court says, I hold you in direct contempt of court for that statement. Though in complete agreement with Older's earlier citing of Canarek, I disagreed with this final finding against Hughes, feeling if he was in contempt of anyone, it was me, not the court. 2, it was based on a simple misunderstanding, one which, when explained to him, Hughes quickly accepted. Older was less understanding. Given a choice between paying a $75 fine or spending the night in jail, Hughes told the court, I am a pauper, Your Honor, with no sympathy whatsoever. Older ordered him remanded into custody. Canarek learned nothing from his night in jail. The next morning, he was right back interrupting both my questions and Linda's replies. Admonishments from the bench accomplished nothing. He apologized, then immediately did the same thing again. All this concerned me so much less than the fact that he occasionally succeeded in keeping our testimony. Usually, when older sustained an objection, I could work my way around it, introducing the testimony in a different way. For example, when Older foreclosed me from questioning Linda about the defendants watching the news of the Tate murders on the TV that day after the murders occurred, because he couldn't see the relevance of this. I asked Linda if, on the night of the murders, she was aware of the identities of the victims. Answer is no. Question is, when was the first time you learned the names of these 5 people? She says the following day on the news. Question, on television? Yes. In Mr. Spawn's trailer? Yes. Did you see Tex, Sadie, and Katie during the day following these killings, other than when you were watching television with them? Answer is, well, I saw Sadie and Katie in the trailer. I cannot remember seeing Tex on that day. The relevance of this would become obvious when Barbara Hoyt took the stand and testified. 1. That Sadie came in and told her to switch channels to the news. 2. That before the particular day, Sadie and the others never watched the news. And 3. That immediately after the newscaster finished with Tate and moved on to the Vietnam War, the group got up and left. In my questioning of Linda regarding the second night, there were some in the second night, there was one reiterated theme. Who told you to turn off the freeway? Charlie? Was anyone else in the car giving directions other than Mr. Manson? No. Did anyone question any of Mr. Manson's commands? No. In her testimony regarding both nights, there was also literally a multitude of details which only someone who had been present on those nights of horrendous slaughter could have known. Realizing very early how damaging this was, Manson had remarked, loud enough for both Linda and the jury to hear, "You've already told 3 lies." Linda, looking directly at him, had replied, "Oh no, Charlie, I've spoken the truth and you know it." Bye, Brother Unlimited. Thanks for coming. By the time I finished my direct examination of Linda Kasabian on the afternoon of July 30th, I had the feeling that the jury knew it too.
Autistic Cheryl, it's FBI Steve's fault.
I know, I seen that. I was like, oh my god, that's hilarious. When I know the defense has something which might prove harmful to the prosecution's case, as a trial tactic, I usually put on that evidence myself first. This not only converts a damaging left hook into a mere left jab, it also indicates to the jury that the prosecution isn't trying to hide anything. Therefore, I brought out, on direct, Linda's sexual permissiveness and her use of LSD and other drugs. She had taken LSD about 50 times, she testified, the last time being in May '69, 3 months prior to the murders. Prepared to destroy her credibility with these revelations, the defense found itself going over familiar ground. In doing so, they sometimes even strengthened our case. It was Fitzgerald, Krenwinkel's defense attorney, not the prosecution, who brought out that during the period Linda was at Spawn, I was not really together in myself. I was extremely impressionistic. I let others put ideas in me, and even more important, that she feared Manson. Question. What were you afraid of? Fitzgerald asked. Answer. I was just afraid. He was a heavy dude. Asked to explain what she meant by this, Linda replied, he just had something, that could hold you. He was a heavyweight. He was just heavy, period. Fitzgerald also elicited from Linda that she loved Manson, that I felt he was the Messiah come again. Linda then added one statement which went a long way toward explaining not only why she, but also many of the others had so readily accepted Manson. When she first saw him, she said, I thought, this is what I've been looking for, and this is what I want, and this is what I saw in him. Manson, a mirror which reflected the desires of others. Hey, Teresa. Question. Was it also your impression that other people at the ranch loved Charlie? Answer. Oh yes, it seemed that the girls worshipped him. Just would die to do anything for him. Helter Skelter, Manson's attitude towards blacks, his domination of his co-defendants. In each of these areas, Fitzgerald's queries brought out additional information which bolstered Linda's previous testimony. Often his questions backfired, as when he asked Linda, do you remember who you slept with on August 8th. Answers no. Question, on the 10th? Answers no, but eventually I slept with all of them. Time and again, Linda volunteered information which could have been considered damaging, yet coming from her somehow seemed only honest and sincere. She was so open that it caught Fitzgerald off guard. Avoiding the word orgy, he asked her regarding the love scene that took place in the back house. Did you enjoy it? Linda frankly answered, yeah, I guess I did. I will have to say I did. If possible, at the end of Fitzgerald's cross-examination, Linda Kasabian looked even better than she had at the end of the direct. It was Monday, August 3rd, 1970. I was on my way back to court from lunch a few minutes before 2 p.m. when I was abruptly surrounded by newsmen. They were all talking at once, and it was a couple of seconds before I made out the words, Vince, have you heard the news? President Nixon just said that Manson's guilty. Fitzgerald had a copy of the AP Wire. In Denver for a conference of law enforcement officials, the president himself, an attorney, was quoted as complaining that the press tended to glorify and make heroes out of those engaged in criminal activities. He continued, I noted, for example, the coverage of Charles Manson case, front page every day in the papers. It usually got a couple of minutes in the evening news. Here is a man who is guilty, directly or indirectly, of 8 murders. Yet here is a man who, as far as the coverage is concerned, appeared to be a glamorous figure. Following Nixon's remarks, Presidential Press Secretary Ron Ziegler said that the president had failed to use the word alleged in referring to the charges. On the way back to Washington on Air Force One, President Nixon issued a supplementary statement. I've been informed that my comment in Denver regarding the Tate murder trial in Los Angeles may continue to be misunderstood despite the unequivocal statement made at the time by my press secretary. The last thing I would do is prejudice the trial rights of any person, in any circumstances. To set the record straight, I do not now and did not intend to speculate as to whether the Tate defendants are guilty, in fact or not. All the facts in the case have not yet been presented. The defendants should be presumed to be innocent at the stage of trial. We discussed the situation in chambers. Fortunately, the bailiffs had brought the jury back from lunch before the story broke. They remained sequestered in a room upstairs, and so as yet there was no chance of their having been exposed. Kennebec moved for a mistrial. Denied. Ever suspicious that the sequestration was effective. Sequestration was not effective. He asked that the jurors be voir dired to see if any had heard the news. As Aaron put it, it would be like waving a red flag. If they didn't know about it before, they certainly will after the voir dire. Surprised I remembered that word. Older denied the motion without prejudice so it could be renewed at a later time. He also said he would tell bailiffs to inaugurate unusually stringent security measures. Later that afternoon, the windows of the bus used to transport the jury to and from the hotel were coated with bon ami to prevent the jurors from seeing the inevitable headlines. There was a TV set in their joint recreation room at the Ambassador. Ordinarily, they could watch any program they wished, except the news, a bailiff changing the channels. Tonight it would remain dark. Newspapers would also be banned from the courtroom, Older specifically instructing the attorneys to make sure none were on the counsel table where they might inadvertently be seen by the jury. When we returned to court, there was a smug grin on Manson's face. It remained there all afternoon. It isn't every criminal who merits the attention of the President of the United States. Charlie had made the big time. The jury was brought down, and Atkins defense attorney Dave Shin began his cross-examination of Linda. Apparently intent on implying that I had coached Linda in her testimony, he asked, do you recall what Mr. Bugliosi said to you during your first meeting? Answer was, well, he has always stressed from you to tell the truth. Question, besides the truth I'm talking about, as if anything else were important. Question, did Mr. Buglioso ever tell you some of your statements were wrong or some of your answers were not logical or did not make sense? Answer, no, I told him. He never told me. Question, the fact that you were pregnant, wasn't that the reason that you stayed outside the Tate residence instead of going inside to participate? Answer was, whether I was pregnant or not. Oh, you slipped away. Hello, you slipped away.
Sorry.
It's all right. Whether I was pregnant or not, I would never have killed anybody. Shin gave up only after an hour and a half. Linda's testimony remained unshaken. With a heavy, ponderous shuffle, Irving Kanarek approached the witness stand. His demeanor was deceiving. There was no relaxing when Kanarek was cross-examining. At any moment he might blurt out something objectionable. There was also no anticipating him. He'd suddenly skip from one subject to another with no hint of a connecting link. Many of his questions were so complex that even he lost the thought and had to have the court reporter read them back to him. I've noticed that one without any common sense makes any video stream she never uses allegedly in report. Yeah, absolutely, Jesse. There was also no anticipating him. He'd suddenly skip from one subject to another. Oops. It was excruciatingly tiring listening to him. It was also very important that I do so, since unlike the two attorneys who preceded him, Kenrick scored points. He brought out, for example, that when Linda returned to California to claim Tanya, she told the social worker that she'd left the state on August 6th or the 7th, which, had this been true, would have been before the Tate LaBianca murders occurred. If accurate, this meant that Linda had fabricated all of her testimony regarding those murders, and if she had lied to the social worker to get her daughter back, Kenrick implied, she could very well lie to this court to get her own freedom. But mostly he rambled and droned on, tiring the spectators as well as the witness. Many of the reporters wrote off Kenrick early in the proceedings. Given a choice of the defense attorneys, they quoted Fitzgerald, whose questions were better phased, but it was Kenrick, in the midst of his verbosity, who was scoring. He was also beginning to get to Linda, at the end of the day, her sixth on the stand. She looked a little fatigued, and her answers were less sharp. No one knew how many days of this lay ahead, since Kenrick, unlike the other attorneys, consistently avoided answering Older's questions about the estimated length of his cross-examination. On my way home that night, I was again thankful the jury had been sequestered. You could see the headlines on every newsstand. The car radio had periodic updates. Hughes, I'm guilty of contempt for uttering a dirty word, but Nixon has the contempt of the word to face. Fitzgerald, it is very discouraging when the world's single most important person comes out against you. The most reported quote was that of Manson, who had passed a statement to the press via one of the defense attorneys. Mimicking Nixon's remarks, it was unusually short and to the point. Here's a man who is accused of murdering hundreds of thousands in Vietnam, who is accusing me of being guilty of 8 murders. The next day in chambers, Kenrick charged the president with conspiracy. The district attorney of Los Angeles County is running for attorney general of California. I say it without being able to prove it, that Val Younger and the president got together to do this. If this was so, Kenrick said, he shouldn't be president of the United States. This guy's wild. The court says, that will have to be decided in some other proceeding, Mr. Kenrick. Let's stay with the issues here. I am satisfied there has been no exposure of any of these jurors to anything the press may have said. I see no reason for taking any further action at this time. Kenrick resumed his cross-examination. On direct, Linda had stated she had taken some 50 LSD trips. Kenrick now asked her to describe what happened on trip number 23. Bulioso says, I object to that question as being ridiculous, Your Honor. Though there's no objection in the rulebook, I felt there should be. Apparently Judge Older felt similarly, and he sustained the objection, as well as others when I objected that a question had been repeated ad nauseum or was nonsensical. Just after the noon recess, Manson suddenly stood and, turning towards the jury box, held up a copy of the front page of the Los Angeles Times. A bailiff grabbed it, but not before Manson had shown the jury the huge black headline, Manson guilty, Nixon declares. Holy shit. Hey, Minnie.
Later down the road, Nixon ended up in deep water too. So
Yeah. Older had the jury taken out. He then demanded to know which attorney, against his express orders, had brought a newspaper into court. There were several denials, but no one confessed. There was no question now that the jury would have to be voir dired. Each member was brought in separately and questioned by the judge under oath. Of the 12 jurors and 6 alternates, 11 were aware of the full headline. 2 saw only the words Manson guilty. 4 only saw the paper or the name Manson, and 1, Mr. Zamora, didn't see anything. I was looking at the clock at the time, he said. Each was also questioned as to her or his reaction. Mrs. Mackenzie, well, my first thought was, that's ridiculous, Mr. McBride. I think if the president declared that, it was pretty stupid of him. Miss Mesner says, no one does my thinking for me, Mr. Dopp. I didn't vote for Nixon in the first place. After an expensive voir dire, all 18 stated under oath that they had not been influenced by the headline and that they would consider only the evidence presented to them in court. Knowing something about jurors, I was inclined to believe them, for a very simple reason. Jurors consider themselves privileged insiders. Day after day, they are part of a courtroom drama. They hear the evidence. They, and they alone, determine its importance. They tend very strongly to think of themselves as the experts, those outside the courtroom, the amateurs. As Juror Dawson put it, he listened to every bit of the testimony. Nixon hadn't. I don't believe Mr. Nixon knows anything about it. My overall feeling was that the jurors were annoyed with the president for attempting to usurp their role. It was quite possible that the statement might have helped Manson, causing them to be even more determined that they, unlike the president, would give him every benefit of the doubt. A number of national columnists say that if Manson was convicted, his conviction would be reversed on appeal because of Nixon's statement. On the contrary, since it was Manson himself who brought the headline to the attorney of the jury, this was invited error, which simply means that a defendant cannot benefit from his own wrongdoing. Oh, you need to go? Okay. Oh, good luck at your appointment. I don't know what it's for, but good luck. You have a good night. It's 1 a.m. It's only 8 o'clock here, almost 8 o'clock. A number of national columnists stated that Manson was convicted. Wait, I just read that tonight. Next is statement. One aspect of this did concern me just a little. It was a subtler point. Although the headlines declared that Manson, not the girls, was guilty, it could be argued that, as Manson's co-defendants, the guilt slopped over onto them. Although I assumed this would be an issue they would raise on appeal, I felt fairly certain it would not constitute reversible error. There are errors in every trial, but most do not warrant a reversal by the appellate courts. This might have, had not Older voir-dired the jury and obtained their sworn statement that they would not be influenced by the incident. Nor did the three female defendants exactly help their case when, the next day, they stood up and said in perfect unison, Your Honor, the president said we are guilty, so why go on trial? Older had not given up his search for the culprit. Day Shin now admitted that just before court resumed, he'd walk over to the file cabinet where the bailiff had placed the confiscated papers, had picked up several, and brought them back to the counsel table. He'd intended to read the sports page, he said, unaware that the front pages were also attached. Declaring Shin in direct contempt of court, Older ordered him to spend 3 nights in the county jail, commencing as soon as court adjourned. We were already past the usual adjournment time. Shin asked for an hour to move his car and get a toothbrush, but Older denied the motion and Shin was remanded in custody. Only everybody's getting thrown in jail for the night. The next morning, Shin asked for continuance. Being in a strange bed and an even stranger place, he hadn't slept well the night before, and he didn't feel he could effectively defend his client. These were not all of his troubles, Shin admitted. I am now having marital problems, Your Honor. My wife thinks I'm spending the night with some other woman. She doesn't read English. Now my dog won't even talk to me.
Oh, God.
Wow. Declining comment on his domestic woes, Judge Older suggested that Shin catch a nap during the noon recess. Motion denied. At least there's some funny parts. Irving Canara kept Linda Kasabian on the stand 7 days. It was cross-examination in the most literal sense. For example, Mrs. Kasabian, did you go to Spawn Ranch because you wanted to seek out fresh men that you had not had previous relations with? Unlike Fitzgerald and Shin, Canara examined Linda's testimony regarding those 2 nights as if under a microscope. The problem with this, as far as the defense was concerned, was that some of her most damning statements were repeated 2, 3, even more times. Nor was Canara content to score a point and move on. Frequently, he dwelt on a subject so long he negated his own argument. For example, Linda had testified that on the night of the tape murders, her mind was clear. She had also testified that after seeing the shooting apparent, she went into a state of shock. Canara did not stop at pointing out the seeming contradiction, but asked exactly where her state of shock ended. She says, I don't know when it ended. I don't know if it ever ended. Question. Your mind was completely clear, is that right? Yes. You weren't under the influence of any drug, is that right? No. I was under the influence of Charlie. Although Linda remained responsive to the questions, it was obvious that Canara was wearing her down. Although links aren't available? Well, they're not good or apparently aren't available. Oh, crap. I didn't know that. On August 7th, we lost a juror and a witness. Juror Welter was excused because both he and his wife were in ill health. The ex-security guard was replaced by Lot by one of the alternates, Larry Sheely, a telephone maintenance man. The same day, I learned that Randy Starr had died at the Veterans Administration Hospital of undetermined illness. The former Swan Ranch hand and part-time stuntman had been prepared to identify the Tate Sebring rope as identical with the one Manson had. Even more important, since Randy had given Manson the 22 caliber revolver, his testimony would have literally placed the gun in Manson's hand. Though I had other witnesses who could testify to these key points, I was admittedly suspicious of Starr's sudden demise. Learning no autopsy had been performed, I ordered one. Starr, it was determined, had died of natural causes, from an ear infection. Kinrek says, Miss Kasabian, I show you this picture. Answer, oh God. Linda turned her face away. It was a color photo of the very pregnant and very dead Sharon Tate. This was the first time Linda had seen the photograph, and she was so shaken, Older called the 10-minute recess. There was no evidence whatsoever that Linda Kasabian had been inside the Tate residence, or that she had seen Sharon Tate's body. Aaron and I therefore questioned Kinrek, showing her the photograph. Fitzgerald argued that it was entirely possible that Miss Kasabian had been inside both the Tate and LaBianca residences and had participated in all the murders. Older ruled that Kinrek could show her the photo. Kinrek then showed Linda the death photo of Wojciech. Answer, he's the man I saw in the door. Oh, I wonder what happened there. Weird. Kinrek says, Miss Kasabian, why are you crying right now? Answer is because I can't believe it. It is just, you can't believe what, Miss Kasabian? That they could do that. I see. Not that you could do that, but they could do that. I know I didn't do that. You were in a state of shock, weren't you? That's right. Then how do you know? Because I know. I do not have that kind of thing in me to do such animalistic things. Kinrek showed Linda the death photos of all 5 of the Tate victims, as well as those of Rosemary and Lino LaBianca. He even insisted that she handle the leather thong that had bound Lino's wrists. Perhaps Kinrek hoped that he would so unnerve Linda that she would make some damaging admission. Instead, he only succeeded in emphasizing that, in contrast to the other defendants, Linda Kasabian was a sensitive human being, capable of being deeply
Hey,
disturbed.
Nikki, I'm gonna go for a minute. I need to line up my windows. I think I just heard thunder outside.
Oh crap, yeah, go do that quick. Linda Kasabian was a sensitive human being, capable of being deeply disturbed by the hideousness of these acts. Showing Linda the photos was a mistake, and the other defense attorneys soon realized this. Each time Kanarek held up a picture, then asked her to look closely at some minute detail, the jurors winced or squirmed uncomfortably in their chairs. Even Manson protested that Kanarek was acting on his own, and still Kanarek persisted. Ronald Hughes approached me in the hall during recess. I want to apologize, Vince. No apology necessary, Ron. It was a heat of the moment remark. I'm only sorry that Older found you in contempt. No, I don't mean that, Hughes said. What I did was a hell of a lot worse. I was the one who suggested that Irving Kanarek become Manson's attorney. On Monday, August 10, 1970, the people petitioned the court for immunity for Linda Kasabian. Though Judge Older signed the petition the same day, it was not until the 13th that he formally dropped all charges against her and she was released. She had been in custody since December 3, 1969. Unlike Manson, Atkins, Carmichael, and Van Houten, she had been in solitary confinement the whole time. My wife Gail was worried. What if she goes back on her testimony? Vince, Susan Atkins did, Mary Bruner did. Now that she has immunity, honey, I have confidence in Linda, I told her. I did, yet in the back of my mind was the question, where would the people's case be if that confidence was misplaced? The next day, Manson passed Linda a long handwritten letter. It seemed at first mostly nonsensical. Only on looking closer did one notice that key phrases had been marked with tiny check marks. Extracted spelling errors intact, they read. Love can never stop if it's love. The joke is over. Look at the end, and if you were not saying what you're saying, there would be no trial. Don't lose your love, it's only there for you. Why do you think they killed JC? Answer, because he was a devil and bad. No one liked him. Don't let anyone have this or they will find a way to use it against me. This trial of man's son will only show the world that each man judges himself. Coming just after she had been granted immunity, the messages could have only one meaning. Manson was attempting to woo Linda back into the family, in hopes that once freed, she would take back her testimony. Her answer was to give the letter to me. Though a number of people had seen Manson pass Linda the letter, Kanarek maintained that she had grabbed it out of his hand. Oh my god, this guy's unbelievable. The most effective cross-examination of Linda Kasabian was surprisingly of Ronald Hughes. Though this was his first trial, and he frequently made procedural mistakes, Hughes was familiar with the hippie subculture, having been part of it. He knew about drugs, mysticism, karma, auroras, vibrations, and when he questioned Linda about these things, he made her look just a little odd, just a wee bit zingy. He had her admitting she believed in ESP, that there were times that spawned when she actually felt she was a witch. Question: do you feel that you were controlled by Mr. Manson's vibrations? Possibly. Did he put off a lot of vibes? Sure, he's doing it right now. Hughes says, may the record reflect your honor that Mr. Manson is merely sitting here. Kanarek, he doesn't seem to be vibrating. Though I felt confident the jury was impressed with Linda, I was pleased to hear the independent evaluation. Hughes requested that the court appoint psychiatrists to examine Linda. Older replied, I find no basis for a psychiatric examination in this case. She appears to be perfectly lucid and articulate. I find no evidence of abbreviation of any kind, insofar as her ability to recall, to relate. In all respects, she has been remarkably articulate and responsive. The motion will be denied. Hughes ended his cross-examination of Linda very effectively. Question: you've testified that you have had trips on marijuana, hash, THC, morning glory seeds, LSD, mescaline, peyote, methadone, and Romalar. Is that right? Yes. In the last year, you have had the following major delusions. You have believed that Charles Manson is Jesus Christ. Is that right? Yes. And you believed yourself to be a witch? Yes. Hughes says, Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time. The basic purpose of redirect examination is to rehabilitate the witness. Linda needed little rehabilitating, other than being allowed to explain more fully replies which the defense had cut off. Shh. For example, I thought out that Linda meant state of shock, figuratively, not medically, and that she was very much aware of what was going on. Buddy, come here. Jack. Somebody must be walking by. Jack. On redirect, the prosecution can also explore areas first open on cross-examination. Since the theft of the $5,000 had come out on cross, I was able to bring in the mitigating circumstances that after stealing the money, Linda had turned it over to the family and that she neither saw it again nor benefited from it. Not until the redirect I was able to bring out why Linda had fled Spawn Ranch without Tanya. The delay in getting this was actually beneficial. I felt for by this time the jury knew Linda Kasabian well enough to accept her explanation. Diet cross, redirect, recross, redirect, recross. Just before noon on Wednesday, August 19th, Linda Kasabian finally stepped down from the stand. She had been up there 17 days, longer than most trials. Though the defense had been given a 20-page summary of all my interviews with her, as well as copies of all her letters to me, not once has she been impeached with a prior inconsistent statement. I was very proud of her. If ever there was a star witness for the prosecution, Linda Kasabian was it. Following the completion of her testimony, she flew back to New Hampshire for a reunion with her 2 children. For Linda, however, the ordeal was not over yet. Kanarek asked that she be subject to recall by the defense, and she would also have to testify when Watson was brought to trial. Randy Starr was not only the witness the people lost during August. Still afflicted with the wanderlust, Robert Kasabian and Charles Milton had gone to Hawaii. I asked Linda's attorney, Gary Fleshman, if he could locate them, but he said they were off on some uncharted island, meditating in a cave, and there was no way to reach them. I wanted Melton especially to testify to Tech's remark, maybe Charlie will let me grow a beard someday. The loss of the other witness was a far greater blow to the prosecution. Saladin Nader, the actor whose life Linda had saved the night the LaBiancas were killed, had moved out of his apartment. He told friends he was going to Europe, but left no forwarding address. Although requested, the LaBianca detectives to try to locate him through the Lebanese consulate and immigration service. They were unsuccessful. I then asked them to interview his former landlady, Mrs. Eleanor Lally, who could at least testify that during August 1969, the actor had occupied apartment 1101 Oceanfront Walk, Venice. But with Nader's disappearance, we lost the only witness who could even partially corroborate Linda Kasabian's story of that second night. On August 18th, however, we found a witness, one of the most important to appear. Let's see how long this is. Okay, I'll read the rest of this chapter. Over 7 months after I first tried to get Watkins and Poston to persuade him to come in for an interview, Juan Flynn decided he was ready to talk. Fearful that he would become a prosecution witness, the family had launched a campaign of harassment against the tall, lengthy Panamanian cowboy that included threatening letters, hang-up phone calls, and cars racing past his trailer in the night, their occupants oinking or shouting pig. All this had made Juan mad enough to contact LASO, who in turn called LAPD. Since I was in court, Sartucci interviewed Flynn that afternoon at Parker Center. It was a short interview, transcribed. It ran to only 16 pages, but it contained one very startling disclosure. Sartucci said, "When did you first become aware of the fact that Charles Manson was being charged with the crimes that he is presently on trial for?" Flynn says, "I became aware of the crimes that he's being charged with when he admitted to me of the killings that were taking place." In his broken English, Flynn was saying that Manson had admitted the murders to him. Was there any conversation about the LaBiancas, or was that all at the same time, or what? Well, I don't know. It was at the same time, but he led me to believe he told me that he was the main cause for the murders to be committed. Did he say anything more than that? He boasted of 35 lives taken in a period of 2 days. When LAPD brought him to my office, I hadn't talked to Sartucci or heard the interview tape, so when they went in interviewing Flynn, I learned of Manson's very incriminating admission. It came as a couple surprise. In questioning Juan, I established that the conversation had taken place in the kitchen at Spawn Ranch, 2 to 4 days after news of the Tate murders broke on TV. Juan had just sat down to lunch when Manson came in, and his right hand brushed his left shoulder, apparently a signal that others were to get out, since they immediately did, aware that something was up, but not what Juan started to eat. Even ever since the arrival of the family at Spawn Ranch, Manson had been trying to get the 6'5" cowboy to join them. Manson had told Flynn, "I will get you a big gold bracelet and put diamonds on it, and you can be my head zombie." There were other incitements. When first offered the same bait as the other males, Juan had sampled it, eagerly to his regret. The damn case of clap just wouldn't go away, Juan told me. Not for 3 or 4 months. Though he remained at Spawn, Juan had refused to be anybody's zombie, let alone little Charlie's. Of late, however, Manson had become more insistent. Suddenly, Manson grabbed Juan by the hair, yanked his head back, and putting a knife to his throat said, "You son of a bitch, you don't know I'm the one who's doing all these killings." Even though Manson had not mentioned the Tate LaBianca murders by name, his admission was a tremendously powerful piece of evidence. Legally, Manson's statement was an admission rather than a confession. An admission is a statement by a defendant which, by itself, is not sufficient to warrant an inference of guilt, but which tends to prove guilt when considered with the rest of the evidence. A confession is a statement by a defendant which discloses his intentional participation in the criminal act for which he is on trial and which discloses his guilt for that crime. The razor-sharp blade still in Juan's throat, Manson asked, "Are you going to come with me, or do I have to kill you?" Juan replied, "I am eating. I am right here, you know." Manson put the knife on the table. "Okay," he said. "You kill me." Resuming eating, Juan said, "I don't want to do that, you know." Looking very agitated, Manson told him, "Helter Skelter is coming down, and we've got to go to the desert." He then gave Juan a choice. He could oppose him or join him. If he wanted to join him, Charlie said, "Go down the waterfall and make love to my girls." Manson's "my girls" was in itself a powerful piece of evidence. Juan told Charlie, the next time he wanted to contact a 9-month case of syphilis or gonorrhea, he'd let him know. It was at this point that Manson boasted of killing 35 people in 2 days. Juan considered it just that, a boast, and I was inclined to agree. If there had been more than 7 Manson-ordered murders during the 2-day period, I was sure that at some point in the investigation we would have found evidence of them. 2, as far as immediate trial was concerned, the later statement was useless as it was obviously inadmissible as evidence. Eventually, Manson picked up the knife and walked out, and Juan suddenly realized he didn't have much appetite left. I talked to Juan over 4 hours that night. Manson's admission was not the only surprise. Manson had told Juan in early June or July 1969, while Juan, Bruce, Davis, and Clem were standing on the boardwalk at Spawn. "Well, I've come down to it. The only way to get Helter Skelter going is for me to go down there and show the black man how to do it, by killing a whole bunch of those fucking pigs." Among Flynn's other revelations, Manson had threatened to kill him several times, once shooting at him with a .22 Longhorn revolver. On several occasions, Manson had suggested that Juan kill various people. And Flynn had not only seen the group leave Spawn on probably the same night the LaBiancas were killed. Sadie had told him just before they left, "We're going to get some fucking pigs." Suddenly, Juan Flynn became one of the prosecution's most important witnesses. The problem now was protecting him until he took the stand. Throughout our interview, Juan had been extremely nervous. He tensed at the slightest noise in the hall. He admitted that, because of his fear, he hadn't had a full night's sleep in months. He asked me if there was any way he could be locked up until it came time for him to testify. I called LAPD and requested that Juan be put in either jail or a hospital. I didn't care which, just as so long as he was off the streets. Bemused by this unusual turnabout, Tortucci, when he picked up Juan, asked him what he wanted to be arrested for. Well, Juan said, thinking of it, he wanted to confess to drinking beer in the desert a couple of months ago. Since he had a national park, that was against the law. Flynn was arrested and booked on that charge. Juan remained in jail just long enough to decide he didn't like it one bit. After 3 or 4 days, he tried to contact me. Unable to reach me right away, he called Spawn Ranch and left a message for one of the ranch hands to come down and bail him out. The family intercepted the message and sent Irving Kanarek instead. Kanarek paid Juan's bill and bought him breakfast. He instructed Juan don't talk to anyone. When Juan had finished eating, Kanarek told him that he had already called Squeaky and the girls that they were on their way over to pick him up. Hearing this, Juan split. Though he remained in hiding, he called in periodically to assure me that he was still all right and that when the time came, he would be there to testify. Although it would never be mentioned in trial, Juan had a special reason for testifying. Shorty Shia had been his best friend. All right, that is enough reading for me for today. Throat's getting sore. We are almost done, and I'll continue next Thursday. But I will be right back. I've got to use the phone booth, so I'll do that. Let's put on some music so it's not so quiet. Actually, let's do this. Okay, I'm back. Did Britt come back? No way. Thanks, Autistic Shelf. Oh, these. Oh, you got new links? Great. I'm not sure if Brittany's coming back. I will continue this, though, next week on Thursday. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me. I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. I think she said, actually, I should check. She said she sent me some stuff or was going to. So let me just see if there's anything. Nope, I guess not. Hold on, let me check over here. You know what? I should be more prepared than this. Have something just in case. I usually try and show something, but when that way, if this happens, when it's like no one's got questions, you toast off. Nancy. I'm actually pretty tired myself. Holy, my throat hurts. Do you guys have any questions at all? I'll answer whatever I can. I could go to bed. What time is it? 8:19. Well, I know I'm tired today, but it's also been like cloudy all day and stuff. So I'm surprised it didn't rain. Sure felt like it was gonna. It was all muggy and gross. Well, if you guys don't have any questions, I'm just gonna go out because I don't think Brittany's coming back. I know she said she had something she wanted to share with me. You know what? I'll check Discord just in case, and then I think that's it. I don't know where else she'd send it. Oh, Twitter maybe. Nope. Teresa falls asleep to me all the time, Nancy. All right, I got nothing to show, and I didn't plan for that or anything. But I don't know. I'm pooped. I'm tired. I'm having a lazy day, I guess. I'm gonna go, and I'll be back. Wait, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday. I'll make a video tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe I'll go live even later on in the night, Friday night. All right, guys. You guys have a great night. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll make it. I gotta make it. Assuming there'll be more shit to put out for KJ, so I'll do that, and I might go live. We'll see if I have time tomorrow. But I've got a live on Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time called Let's Chat. Let's discuss the bull crap. It's okay. No, today you didn't fall asleep, but Teresa falls asleep all the time. It's funny. All right. You guys have a great night, and we'll continue this on Thursday. Bye, guys.